former Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, has announced he is resigning as an MP, saying it's time for him to continue his fight for the environment from a different perspective. Prime Minister Carney, he wished him well earlier today.
First and foremost, what I want to do is thank Mr. Stephen Guilbeault, for his many contributions, for the members of his riding, first and foremost, a dedicated MP for Ville Sainte-Marie for these years, for the people of Canada, for the government, for the cabinet, for myself and his vice. We've worked together. We worked together when I was UN Special Representative on climate action and finance as well. So we work together closely in a variety of areas, and I've always enjoyed working with him. And then, in terms of the follow-up questions, of course, it's for him to make decisions about his career and the next stage of career. All aspects of all our careers, even journalists, even prime ministers, get to a point where things change and people make decisions. And I very much respect that. And as I say, I've enjoyed it, and I wish him all the best. And I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, we'll have an opportunity to continue to work together on issues of interest.
And that comes after 14 Liberal MPs did something rare. They publicly challenged their own leader over fast-tracking major projects.
Yeah, 14. Well, now one of them is gone, and that's Stephen Guilbeault.
Right.
Not many tears are being shed for him, especially out west and especially in Alberta, because of the havoc that he and Justin Trudeau created out there with their plans to cut carbon emissions and everything else. And I guess their pie-in-the-sky dream of eliminating fossil fuels in a very short span of time. Yeah. And he stepped away as environment minister in Carney's cabinet because the prime minister was starting to move in a direction that was opposite to where Trudeau and Guilbeault had been over the last decade. And so it got to a point where, first of all, this letter was penned and it was given to Carney around the end of April. It leaked out to I believe Radio Canada got it first. So the Mother Corp overall. Mm-hmm. And they got the letter with the condition that they were asked to withhold the names of the 14 MPs. So they did, to protect sources. They considered all 14 their sources. That in itself is... I did a double take when I heard that. Yeah. And I've been trying to deal with it over the last little while. Part of me says I get it to a point. But the normal procedure is you protect the source who you're dealing with, not necessarily others who might be in a group, unless they come to you, each one of them comes to you individually with a copy and says, this is a copy of a letter, but don't use my name. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then you realize that none of them want to have their names revealed. Well, the word is that it was Guilbeault who penned the letter and the other 13 signed it. So Guilbeault's out. So we still have 13 within Caucus. Carney's downplaying it and saying that, you're going to have diversity of views in a large caucus, and that's a healthy thing.
Right.
But the fact that somebody took this letter to a reporter and said, have a look at this.
Mm-hmm.
People in the Liberal caucus aren't happy. Why wouldn't they, even before writing a letter to the Prime Minister, and maybe they did, I don't know, but we would have, I think, heard something before this, that they may have been just talking amongst themselves. And I understand there's a caucus environmental committee. So maybe it's these 14 on this caucus environmental committee, because they met Monday night. And where it went from there, we haven't heard anything other than all of a sudden it's hitting the news. Everybody's got a breaking story that sources are telling them Guilbeault's resigning, and he did.
Right.
And he said he doesn't agree with the backtracking on the environmental policies that Carney's been doing to move major projects forward, and that he's going to get out of politics, but he's going to look for other venues to work on and pursue his environmental dream, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
his objectives, his environmental objectives. So
Right.
you've got them protesting in the environmental rollbacks. They opposed Carney's deal with Alberta to fast-track resource pipelines and slow down industrial carbon pricing. The names remain hidden to prevent a public mutiny, with media outlets strictly protecting the MPs' identities.
Mm-hmm.
So if every other media outlet had a copy of the letter, but it was Radio Canada, I believe, was the first to break it. To me, this, I'm almost leaning in favor of the names go out. If you don't have, it's not that, like they're saying, well, we were trying to prevent a caucus mutiny. Do you not think the caucus knows who you are?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a crock. And as I say, if other media outlets got the same letter at roughly the same time, or maybe it was published in a paper, I don't know. But I'm leaning, I have an issue with the way it was handled personally. Yeah. And I think I would have handled the actual leaking of the letter differently.
Right.
To me, if you, in a situation like this where you have 14 people signing a letter, come on. If you don't have the gonads as a group to stand up and be counted, then don't even bother writing the damn letter, and don't open your mouth, just go away.
How different is this from something you and I talked about for quite some time, when people make derogatory comments on social media through an alias? How different is this? So are these 13, let's call them 13 for to respect Mr. Guilbeault's resignation, how different are these 13 hiding or wanting to hide their identity for something that they're supposedly so passionate about, the environment? And that's point number one. Point number two, Gary, when was the last time you have ever seen a party in power in Canada that did not have some dissent on certain policies within the party, and they were vocal about it, and they talked about it, they worked around it, and kept business moving forward? This is nothing new. Is this a potential crack in Carney's armor? You know what? Maybe it is. Maybe Prime Minister Carney needs a kick in the gonads now and then to remind him that he is representing the country that's represented by members of his constituents, are represented by members of his caucus. He's got to listen to them. But to do it behind I'm not even going to call it closed doors, to do it anonymously and then have some sort of a release out to the general public through a one media outlet. That's just dirty. Come on, let's talk about it. Myself as a citizen, I want to know who you are, and I'd like to hear your views. I really would, and I think a lot of Canadians would as well. Point number three, and I've mentioned this quite a few times, and I've seen it termed as that. You talk about Trudeau's policies with carbon tax and environmental control and whatnot, and doing away with fossil fuel use in record time. That was Liberals 1.0. This is the Liberal Party 2.0, navigating the tumultuous currents of the situations of the world today. And Liberal Party 2.0 is probably 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.3 right now, considering what's going on in the Middle East. So, you know what? I'm thinking at this particular point that Carney is navigating these waters to put Canada in the forefront and put us in the best position, not just for today, but for years to come. And he is going to override policies from Liberal 1.0 that make no sense to our country moving forward, and rightly so. You kick those by the wayside and you move in a different direction. Having these discussions with Alberta, I don't think has 100% to do with the fact that, oh, geez, I have to appease Alberta because, the separatist cages are being rattled right now. No, Canada as a country has got a tremendous resource in Alberta to be able to strengthen that province and strengthen this whole country in the midst of what's going on the planet right now, and the consequences of U.S. policy over the last year and a few months. So this is Liberal Party 2.0. Yes, he's going to continue ruffling feathers, probably on some other policies. And you know what? That's a good thing, Gary. This is what I feel is really stronger about our country and the way we run our democratic process and system up here, is that you allow for dissension within your party, which keeps the party leader in check, in line, and ear to the ground in terms of what is troubling Canadians and what's troubling Caucus, so they can actually so he can actually listen, not just to good things. He needs to be able to listen. What are the problems within my own party to be able to act on them? But circling back and closing off, Gary, to your comment, absolutely. I think they should have stood up as a group and come out and say, we're going to be discussing this with Mr. Carney, and give him the chance to debate it,
And Carney calls, dismissed the leak as a healthy exchange, and noting that the rebels represent a small fraction of his caucus. And I have to love the Bloc response. Really have to love the Bloc response. They capitalized on the friction. They publicly dared the anonymous MPs to break ranks on upcoming votes.
Oh, okay.
In other words, show your faces.
Yeah.
They never cease to amaze me, the Bloc, Blanchette, and some of his reactions. But Greg asks a question in his comment that I put up a moment ago about promoting the environment and oil gas development. Can they really coexist? They can coexist. It's not perfect, as most things aren't. But the fact of the matter is, we still rely on fossil fuels for pretty much everything in our day-to-day routine at the moment. And until we are in a position where we can start, not quickly, but in a steady manner, moving away from that through new developments of whatever materials, without fossil fuels involved in some way, then we do that. But it's coexist. Coexist might be a little bit strong. Maybe it's just that can we work side by side, trying to achieve one goal while maintaining life in a reasonable manner as we know it, because we rely so much on fossil fuels. And there are moves to increase the amount of biofuels. But does that really mean that we're moving away totally from our reliance on fossil fuels? No. It's going to be, it took us years and years to get to this point where we are now. And with fossil fuels and the additives of fossil fuels involved in so many of our daily routines, activities, our clothing, pretty much everything we touch, as I say.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take us years and years and years, hopefully because of technology, maybe a shorter span of time to move away from our dependency on them and move into a whole new era. But it's not going to happen overnight. And sometimes I think that some of these people, as passionate as they are about the climate and getting away from fossil fuels, they're not dealing with reality and how they see it happening and how quickly they see it happening.
Yeah. Well, it's,
So,
you have a lot of these individuals, and I get their point, and I try to be as environment friendly as possible. They'll protest, they'll complain, they'll bash the environmental policies, and talk about how bad fossil fuels are, and then they'll go into their kitchen and take some food out and wrap their food up in saran wrap, right? There's a byproduct
exactly.
of fossil fuel. Yeah. So, it's fossil fuel. People make the mistake of thinking about the juice that you put in your car to make it go, or trucks or airplanes. That's just a small portion of the use of fossil fuel. It's all the fossil fuel byproducts that actually are ingrained in our everyday living and everyday use of whatever tools, clothing, or whatever the hell we touch. We see it and touch it every day. So it's not just a question of the fuel you put in your vehicle to get from point A to B. I mean, you know what? There are a lot of countries in the world are becoming leaders in electric vehicle use. They're looking at alternative power generation for heating our homes and lighting our homes with wind power and solar energy. And yeah, so there are significant programs underway to minimize our dependency for power use. But the replacement of fossil fuel byproducts, this is all going to be a long-term stretch. And until such time there's something out there to replace the key components of fuel byproduct, oil byproducts, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, in probably for generations. This is it would be groundbreaking to come up with an alternative. So until such time, we have to do the best we can in the minimal way we can to protect the environment. But there has to be a scratch my back, scratch your situation where there's a coexistence of environmental protection and our dependency on fossil fuels, of which Canada has got a tremendous reserve of, and in today's world, there should be a very desirable and highly sought natural resource that Canada can contribute to the rest of the world. Not for free, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, coming back around to what kind of damage, political damage, does this do to Carney? I don't think it's going to damage him at all. Personally, I'll say that Guilbeault was not my favorite as a minister. However, he did, and I give him full marks for putting his name forward and offering to serve his constituents. And that takes a lot of time and effort away from home and in your home life to do so. And I fully applaud anyone who offers for public service, especially now in the day and age of so-called social media. But as I say, as a minister in the portfolio he was in, not my favorite. But for his service to his constituents and to democracy in Canada, I say thank you. Now, I don't think this is going to hurt Carney. I think Carney is what sometimes those who are looking at it from a political standpoint are forgetting the world in which Carney has operated in the past. And you and I have mentioned this in different situations where he's bringing the CEO to the head of the boardroom table in the cabinet room and handling things in that manner. And I don't have an issue with that. I think the more we can move our government to more of a business model instead of what we have now is a good thing. Eventually, if you can keep it going, eventually you will have a government that really works properly and serves people in a proper fashion. I think Carney can maintain internal discipline, and I don't think his agenda is going to become unstable. I think he's going to bring the CEO side to the table, the cabinet table, and just say, okay, folks, this is the way it is. So our takeaway, Eddie?
Gary, our takeaway, you don't lose control overnight. It starts with letters, just like this one.